Florida has been a long-time favorite destination for Canadian snowbirds seeking refuge from the harsh northern winters of Canada and also from Canadians who want to relocate on a more permanent basis. But in 2025, the relationship between Canadians and Florida, or at least Florida real estate, seems to be shifting. So, are Canadians selling their Florida homes en masse? Is there an exodus on the way? Let's find out. My name is Ben Danholm. I'm a real estate broker here in Central Florida, and I deal with people from all over the country and all over the world. And I have noticed that in recent times that Canadians seems to be more willing to sell than buy in Florida, or in recent months, I would say. And for years, this image of the Canadian snowbirds flocking to Florida has been a familiar one. So it's quite strange to note that it seems like these are changing times. That maybe we're seeing fewer Canadians in the future. And as a matter of fact, in 2024, a report indicated that Canadians make up still a significant portion of foreign buyers in the US, with Florida being their number one top choice. But more recent reports paint a little bit of a different picture. News articles and industry analysis from early 2025 suggest there's a notable increase in Canadian homeowners putting their home on the market, and potentially more putting it on the market than they are selling it. So put this in some kind of perspective, consider this: between April 2023 and March 2024, Canadians accounted for nearly a quarter of all foreign home sales in Florida. That's a substantial jump up from the previous year's 11%. Some real estate professionals I talked to are also feeling the shift. I was talking to one broker who said that they have noticed that they are almost handling double the amount of listings from Canadians as they normally do this time of year. So there is definitely a change on the way. So, what is driving this potential exodus from Florida? And there seems to be a lot of different factors to play here, um, with maybe economic pressures being the main reason that people are moving out or trying to get out of the market here in Florida. A quite significant depreciation of the Canadian dollar against the US dollar is definitely making it more expensive for Canadians to own homes in Florida, especially if they're not renting them out when they're not using them. So when your dollar buys less, those Florida expenses that needs to be paid in US currency, they suddenly become quite a much bigger burden. If you add that to a quite a dramatic rise in property insurance in the last few years here in Florida, premiums have increased a lot for homeowners in Florida due to climate change, hurricane risks, and insurance companies closing down. And when you take that increase in insurance and then also have to add that the currency you're paying with is worth less, so the amount you're paying in Canadian dollars are going up more than it would be for somebody who would be paying in US dollars. And it doesn't really stop there, because rising property taxes and condominiums fees are also squeezing our Canadian friends when they own a home in Florida. And we all know that some condo fees have more than doubled in the last few years because of changed rules about what condo associations need to be having reserves and what they need to make in repairs to avoid any further catastrophes. So when you combine a weak Canadian currency with all these escalating costs, it creates a significant financial burden for someone who owns a property from Canada, especially, like I said, if they don't rent it out or they don't use it. But it's not just economics we're talking about here. We're also talking about US policies playing an active role in this, because new immigration rules that will come into effect here in 2025 will require foreign nationals staying longer than 30 days to register with the authorities and submitting fingerprints. They would have to tell when they're coming, when they're leaving, and why they're here. And that's something that's pretty new for Canadians, because up until now, actually, Canadians have been able to travel across the border and come to visit for as much as they want. They don't really have to register. They might have to answer a few questions when they cross the border, but it's more like, yeah, you don't have to register. You can come as much as you want. So this added bureaucracy is causing some frustration among Canadian snowbirds, because they feel like they're being put in a category of something they shouldn't be. And it's also adding, if you can really no longer just decide, okay, I'll come down, and then depending on the weather and when things are going on back home in Canada, maybe I'll come home in a month, maybe I'll come home in 2 months. Now you actually have to make a decision for how long you're staying here, because you have to report that when you cross the border. The imposition of new tariffs on Canadian goods in 2025 is definitely also another factor. It's both a political factor, but also it's contributing to the weaker Canadian dollar and is increasing the cost of living in the U.S., which makes it even worse for the Canadians when they come down here and pay with their Canadian dollars. But what I found most interesting about all this is it's not just about finances and policies. There also seems to be a generational shift in lifestyle preferences. And while the finances and the policies are something that will be temporary potentially and will go over, the shift in generational preferences is actually much worse for us here in Florida because it seems like younger retirees are increasingly opting for more diverse travel experiences. There seems to be a trend to want to explore destinations like Portugal, Mexico, or the Dominican Republic, or other places, and even other states in the US, rather than just settling on one place for the entire winter. So, as the Canadians look for alternatives, like I said, like Portugal, Mexico, and other places, and even other US states like Arizona, while all these places are gaining traction, that is costing Florida visitors and potentially investors. So, what are the potential consequences of this shift? Well, an increase in inventory could lead to softer prices in some Florida markets, especially there where there are lots of Canadian owners, and that could end up benefiting US buyers, but definitely not US sellers. Um, the rental market might also see some changes, but perhaps the most significant long term impact could be on Florida's tourism industry. Canadians put a lot of money into our energy, into our economy. They are a major source of winter visitors. So a decline in their numbers could lead to substantial economic losses, especially in areas that are deeply dependent on tourism, like Central Florida, where I am, but also the coastal areas. So it's important when we talk about this, and we talk about how Canadians are selling more and more homes for it. It is important to remember that there's a long history of Canadian investment in the Sunshine State. So the future really will depend on how these economic, political, and lifestyle factors continue to evolve. So maybe Florida will have to adapt its strategies to attract other buyers from other countries or other parts of the country to maintain its appeal as a top winter destination. I don't know, only the future will tell. If you like this video, if you like any of my other videos, well, if you like this video in particular, please give it a thumbs up and maybe a positive remark. If you have any criticism, I would like to hear from you as well. If you'd like to know more about Florida and Central Florida real estate and what happens in the market right now, well, I suggest maybe to follow or subscribe to this channel and hit that little notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now. Oh, before I go, if you have any thoughts about selling or buying real estate in Central Florida, obviously, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help. And even if you're not selling or buying, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the market. So send me a note, send me an email, give me a call. I'm here to help if you need me. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.